So, hello and welcome. I call the August 22nd, 2023 City Council regular meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Kathy Littlefield.
Present.
Council members Tammy Caputi.
Here.
Tom Durham.
Here.
Barry Graham.
Here.
Betty Janik.
Here.
And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson.
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott.
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lake Clough.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Tonight we have Sergeant Sean Ryan, as well as Sergeant Eric Bowles, and firefighter Bobby Conan, should anyone require assistance. The area to my left is restricted. The restrooms are available at that mezzanine through that exit passage. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, calling on Vice Mayor Kathy Littlefield. Well, 32 years ago, Ukraine declared its independence. 32 years ago, this week, the children born were the first free-born Ukrainians. And today, these 32-year-olds and their younger siblings are fighting for their freedom and democracy against Russia. So I'd ask that we call to mind their sacrifice and their fight for democracy. Let's pause. Thank you. Well, the annual conference for the League of Arizona Cities and Towns will have a conference in Tucson next week. And the city of Scottsdale, on behalf of you, we will be proposing a number of resolutions for short-term rentals regarding limiting the number of STRs allowed, density and proximity of rentals to each other. So you will be seeing and hearing some news about that as we bring that forward as a combining all cities together. Secondly, I want to remind you that Scottsdale residents wanting to volunteer their time and institute positive change in Scottsdale are invited to apply to serve on city boards and commissions. Applications are now being accepted until August 31st for 10 boards and commissions. Certainly, you can just go to scottsdaleaz.gov and search boards and commissions. You'll also hear one round of nominations for boards in today's session. So it is vital, and we depend on volunteer participation to keep our city on a steady course. For your information, during tonight's meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session to obtain legal advice on any applicable item on the agenda. If authorized by the council, the executive session would be held immediately and would not be open to the public. The public meeting would resume following the executive session. Also, as far as rules of conduct, per our council rules, citizens attending city council meetings shall observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to the members of council and city staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from the audience, such as applause, stamping of feet, Whistles, boos, yells, and/or other demonstrations shall not be permitted. Violation of these rules could result in removal from the meeting by security staff. We do this in order to keep the meeting flowing so that we can take care of the people's business. The next agendized item is for public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for Scottsdale citizens, Scottsdale businesses, business owners, or property owners to comment on a non-agendized item that are within the council's jurisdiction. Advocacy for or against a candidate or a ballot measure during the council meeting is not allowed pursuant to state law and is therefore deemed not to be within the council's jurisdiction. No official action can be taken on public comment items, and the speakers are limited to 3 minutes to address the council. If you wish to speak on a non-agendized item, you would just check with the clerk. In speaking with him, there's no request for public comment. Therefore, I will close public comment. Next, we have the review of our minutes. I would ask for a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of July 10th, 2023, executive session minutes of July 10th, 2023, regular meeting and work study session minutes of July 10th, 2023, special meeting minutes of July 11th, 2023, executive session minutes of July 11th, 2023, and regular meeting minutes of July 11th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
And a second from Councilman Durham. Please record your vote. Thank you, unanimous. Next item on our agenda is consent agenda items. Consent agenda items 1 through 15 have a full file on every matter and consist of agendized items which might be pulled to a regular agenda should anyone have a question. And therefore, consent agenda items 1 through 15 are posted as moving forward. If I see that Councilwoman may have a question, and go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question on item 14.
Okay. Can that be answered, or
Yeah.
would you like to ask it now?
Yeah,
Or-
it's
good.
easy.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I just want a clarification on, I know it's to correct some changes in the numbers of the code, but you also removed owners of vacation rentals or short-term rentals shall have 6 months from the effective date, et cetera. Does that mean going forward that they don't have 6 months, that they need to be in compliance much sooner than 6 months?
Yeah,
Brent, why don't you describe the item, and then.
sure. Mayor Ortega, members of the council, Councilwoman Janik. So we're trying to do two things with this ordinance. One, we're correcting a link to another section of the code, and that's only needs to be done because the separate code was amended after the vacation rentals code amendment. The other thing that happened is the effective date of the vacation rentals code amendment has already passed. So we don't need the language giving people 6 months to comply anymore because everybody has to comply as of May 23rd of 2023. That's what we did there. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So, clarifying, that was item number 14. Councilmember Graham, did you have a question? Or?
Mayor, no, I just wanted to pull a couple items from consent, if I may.
Okay, which would those be?
11 and 12, please.
And could you describe that?
Sure. 11 is the transfer for the NCAA Men's Final Four tournament. And 12 would be, I thought, very edifying for the public to learn about management of the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, also we invite the public to comment on any of the consent agenda items. And we see that there's no public comment on these items. Therefore, I will close public comment. So to clarify, we have remaining on consent agenda, items 1 through 10, excluding 11 and 12. Then we have consent agenda item 13, 14, and 15 remaining. Do I have a motion on approval of consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Thank you. We are unanimous. Moving on, we have created or will have a full presentation on item 11 and 12, and call forward the probably Karen Churchard, or excuse me, let's see who. Oh, great, Mr. Germain. Regarding the Arizona Major Events Host Committee Agreement request to adopt a resolution. Thank you. Please
Yes.
continue.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Steve Gigamont, Tourism
Steve.
Events. I have a presentation here to kind of go over the event
Sure.
funding request,
Yes,
hopefully answer any questions you might have following. I'd like to also say the Arizona Major Event Host Committee members are here as well to address any questions you might have related to the activation or the agreement or the funding process. Oh, we're not moving. Oh, there we go. First, as I mentioned, the Arizona Major Event Host Committee is requesting $432,000 in support of the regionally hosted 2024 NCAA Men's Final Four Tournament. The tournament is played on April 6th and 8th, 2024 in Glendale at the State Farm Stadium. I'd also like to mention on July 30th, the Tourism Development Commission recommended allocating $432,000 from the Tourism Development Fund 5% destination marketing allocation retained by the city in support of that agreement. Just a little bit of information. You may recall in 2017, the region hosted the men's Final Four basketball tournament. Back then, the funding was requested by the host committee from many of the municipalities regionally as well. A little bit of different information regarding 27 investment, economic impact to the region itself. I have a table here providing some of that information. The investment by the city in 2017 was $150,000. The estimate provided by the organizing committee was roughly $250,000 realized value from the deliverables. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those deliverables here in just a minute. ASU did a study and found that the economic impact of the region was roughly $325 million. Some more additional information on 2017. Close to 60,000 visitors came for the Final Four tournament, stayed an average of 4 nights. Spending average was about $490 per day. The combined attendance for the tournament was 153,000. At that time, it was the second highest in NCAA history. 23 million viewers watched the Final Four broadcast. This information is specific to Scottsdale. It's key performance indicators for the hotel properties. We had, this kind of shows the increase in what we have related to the prior year to the 2017 year. We had 85% occupancy over that period of time of the tournament, which is roughly about a 9%, 10% growth. Our average daily rate was $325, which is roughly about a 43% growth. So we did see that little incremental impact. What's not on this slide is the year after, we did additional analysis for these key performance indicators. We did find that there was a decrease in those indicators I just mentioned, kind of showing that bump related to the event itself, and that information is in your report. Some additional analysis, the host committee operating budget is $4 million. They're requesting that from the Maricopa County cities qualifying for Prop 302 funding. They utilize the Prop 302 funding to identify the allocations that are requested from the municipalities, whether it be the DMOs, or in our case, the city itself. So they utilize that to come up with $432,000. Additional information in this table shows the increase between 2016 and 17 related to tax collections. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see $1.8 million was an additional increase related to that period of time of those 2 months. Now I'd like to spend a little time talking about the deliverables of Scottsdale in this particular agreement that we're requesting approval here tonight. The room nights, we're getting 4,000 Scottsdale room nights in the official block. We originally started around 2,000, but we were able, through communication, and working on additional incentives, moving that up to 4,000 room nights. Marketing inclusions are included, highlighting features within the travel information portion of their website. Community engagement may provide fan jam, truck mascots, cheerleaders, et cetera, if available, to like Scottsdale events. Coordinate with Scottsdale to communicate to all schools about unique Read to the Final Four program. In addition, business involvement, invite qualified Scottsdale businesses to apply for the Business Connect program, an opportunity to highlight Scottsdale business participating in the program. Additional deliverables, event and planning, including familiarization tours ahead of the Final Four. Venues, host committee will encourage use of Scottsdale venues, businesses as sites for the Final Four. Hospitality, invitations, and ticket opportunities related to the 24 game. Experience Scottsdale will closely partner with Scottsdale and host committee to leverage the Final Four through in-kind marketing and promotion. Some additional analysis, so bed tax investment of $432,000, coupled with the benefits, extensive television coverage, national media exposure, it should provide substantial value, equal value to the city regarding this particular funding request this afternoon. Based on fiscal 23-24 tourism development funds, sources and uses, projection funds are available for that total payment of $432,000. So the action here is outlined tonight. Approve resolution number 12901, authorizing agreement 2023-126 for the funding, $432,000. The funding will be made in two payments this fiscal year, $216 apiece in regards to the total, and that's coming from the 5% marketing allocation retained by the city. That concludes my presentation. Any questions you might have?
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate that. You know, I like saying Scottsdale puts Arizona on the map, and certainly with this basketball participation as a host city then, right? We'd be a host city similar to the way we did it with the Super Bowl. Councilmember Graham, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Steve. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
I don't know a whole lot about Arizona Major Events Host Committee. Do we have any representation on that committee?
No, not directly. We will have representation on their marketing committee, similar to what we have with the Super Bowl. So that will be our participation. We are in close communication with them continually throughout leading up to the event, and I'm sure economic development will have some participation in the business programs.
Who from our city liaisons to the, pull this closer, who from our city is the representative or liaisons to the host committee?
Well, that would be our contract administrator, Director Karen Churchard, but probably the main liaison.
Okay, very good. And then in 2017, which, 5-6 years ago, they asked us to kick in 150,000, and this one is 430,000 roughly.
As Councilman Durham, it has increased, yes. The deliverables were quite different in 2017. We had substantially less room nights in the block.
Yeah, I was curious how you felt about the inputs versus outputs.
Well, we've done the analysis, as we do with all our events, to make sure we get that fair, substantial, equal value. Throughout the review period leading up to the tournament, we'll continue that process. The second payment is made probably a week prior to the game itself, so that gives us time to evaluate where we are with that second payment.
Have other municipalities, has their contribution or payment gone up commensurately to ours? Have you looked at that?
We have the $4 million budget. Like I said, I can invite one of the members of the host committee to come up and address the other municipalities.
I was just curious, yeah, I mean, if you think someone else is qualified to answer the question.
They probably have more of a better understanding of the municipalities in the ask made.
Council members, Mayor. Yes, we've been in.
Oh, sir, do you mind introducing yourself
Yeah,
just for the public?
Yeah, Kyle Hedstrom. I'm with the Arizona Major Events Host Committee and one of the representatives today to talk about the Final Four. To your question, Council Member, we have been working, as we do with all the major events, similar to, as the Mayor mentioned, the Super Bowl, with each municipality or their DMO, and using the Prop 302 formula for those specific requests. We do have several of those cities or CVBs signed on as partners already. And
What are some other cities that are participating?
I think the ones that I could mention would be the city of Glendale, if it is a private or CVB, we do have the Visit Phoenix that's signed on board, Avondale, Peoria, and the city of Phoenix.
Okay, and would you say that their contributions have increased consistently or ratably with City of Scottsdale?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. And then I was also going to ask, you know, during the Super Bowl, we had like all the TV and the events here. I was curious what kind of events and presence might be in Scottsdale or other cities outside of Glendale.
Yeah, phenomenal question. As Steve had mentioned earlier, we're going to be working on a familiarization trip, which is coming up here the week of September 10th, I believe. The Warner Brothers Discovery Network, the NCAA, all of their vendors will be coming out and will be doing a number of tours of hotels, venues, potential site visits to figure out where those events will or can go. There were 9 events back in 2017 that did come to the city of Scottsdale amongst a number of groups that were staying here in Scottsdale hotels. So it's a little bit of to be determined. It's a different event with a different size than Super Bowl and scope, but we're very connected and looking forward to exploring what groups want to do here.
Okay, so the events that will happen in Scottsdale are still to be determined?
To be determined.
Okay, even though our contribution's fixed?
Correct.
Got it. And then this is going to show, I don't know very much about college basketball, but is it the same number of games and TV presence and activity and economic activity, this compared to 2017?
Correct. It'll be the same number of games. There's the 2 Final Four games that are on Saturday, April 6th, with the championship game on Monday, April 8th. So that same setup, same location as State Farm Stadium, with roughly about the same attendance. The economic impact that we've seen since 2017 in other cities does seem to have grown, and we expect to see some growth as well.
Kyle, thanks for coming and talking to us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. And then just one last question, Steve, if I may ask.
Sure.
It's just kind of a funny thing, but the entity that's calculating how much benefit we're getting is the same entity that's calculating how much we need to pay. Do you have any concerns with that?
Well, in 2017, they gave us an estimate value, and that's what we showed this evening.
Did you double check that, or?
Oh, yeah, so we go through review process, post-event report, we check, we allocate. For this particular ask, and most of our other events too, staff does an analysis. We do works related to determining whether we are going to receive fair, substantial, equal value. We do have some consultants that we contract with that assist us in that regard, and we try to get best estimates as we can. But ultimately, we put the deliverables in, and then we monitor those deliverables, and we try to ensure they're received.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good question. So I just have one more. Could you expand a little on how the 4,000 room block works? So is that, are those required for those rooms to be filled? How does that work?
Correct. Generally, the host committee, as I'll refer to it, generally create a block, and they'll fill those 4,000 room nights. We'll monitor that at the end of the day and determine whether that allocation was reached regarding room nights.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I move for approval of, to adopt resolution number 12901, authorizing the agreement number 2023-126-COS with the Arizona Major Events Host Committee, a financial sponsorship agreement not to exceed $432,000 to be made in 2 payments of $216,000.
Second.
Thank you. A second. So that was my motion, and we have 1 second here from Councilwoman Janik. Any further discussion? For the record, I don't see any public comment on this one. So public comments closed. Please record your vote. Thank you. Unanimous, and we're looking forward to good times. Thank you so much. The next item that we're looking at is item number 12. It has to do with the resolution for a healthy forest. And this is a cooperative measure which also impacts our water and sustainability issues as well as firefighting We have Chief Shannon. Thank you. Please make your presentation.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Graham, I believe it was your item to be pulled. This is a good news story. It's a routine opportunity that we take for the last few years to collaborate with both the State Department of Fire and Forestry Management, the Governor's Office, frankly, through the State Forester, as well as Maricopa County Emergency Management, to lever grant dollars to do fuels management throughout Scottsdale. We partner with Community Services, the Budget Office, and a number of other agencies within the city under a task force model, if you will, for our open spaces, our wildland fire vulnerability areas, and of course, the crown jewel of which is our 30,000 acre preserve. So this grant essentially continues that work. Really the way it works is that we're only able to use grant funds for singular treatments of geography, and we usually match that with in-kind services in the way of staff time, salary. There's no real cash match in these transactions. So the cash side to do the actual fuel abatement is what we use the grant dollars for, and the grant match is usually met through our staff time. And that includes everybody from myself to budget office folks' time to our emergency manager, who is available for comment if needed, as well as our fuels manager. So this is a great news story in that we are continuing to use these grant dollars to keep ourselves safe in Scottsdale and really try to manage fuel. So beyond that, there's not a lot to the grant. I'm happy to answer any questions that might be specific, if there are any.
Councilwoman Janik.
Thank you. Nice presentation. This is great news. Is this similar in the amount that's being allocated to past years?
It is. I have to give credit where credit is due. We have a relationship with both of these entities that comes from our newest hire in the emergency management realm, and that is Dave Ramirez. He worked at the U.S. Forest Service for his entire career, and he has relationships that help us communicate the vulnerability of Scottsdale and our open spaces a little bit more effectively. So we have had great success, and those dollars levered with the work that's being done already in the general fund through community services really kind of puts Scottsdale at the front of the pack in terms of the work that really needs to be done to manage fuels.
Okay. Another question. Are we able to count all the volunteer hours towards the amount that we have to match?
That's a great question. Troy, did you hear that question, and can you pipe in and share volunteer hours? I know annually we quantify the value of volunteer hours, but I don't know if that's a grant match. Troy, do you know?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person tonight, but to address that question, we can include volunteer hours as long as they are tracked and they are specific to wildfire management. So we haven't done that in the past, but we could do that. Really, the way that we're set up with this grant and the relationship that we have, the Department of Fire and Forestry Management is already well suited to be matched and keep us moving forward. And just go back real quick on a previous question. We had asked for 500,000 a little over 2 years ago. We got 350,000, and we've spent most of that. This new grant will be for the full amount that we're allowed to ask for is 500,000, and we've been so successful, and we have such good relationships. We do expect to get that full amount.
That's great. Thank you. And one more question. Does this include any of the cleaning of the forest floor in the preserve? You know, where you go in and you clean up the debris for water flow?
So there is some of that. So the invasive species and things like that, there's a whole strategy that we adhere to within this task force model where we prioritize the vulnerabilities, and there's both mechanical, literally going out and doing landscaping, taking out, and those are really to just eliminate those ladder fuels, the ones that are really not supposed to be there or in the form that they are would contribute to greater loss. And so there's actual thinning, and we see that mostly on the roadways. It's my hope, and as we talk about the Protect and Preserve Commission work that will be coming to you, I think we do need to start focusing on the interior of the preserve to really make sure that the fuels that are in there don't contribute to greater loss. We can predict with fairly good accuracy in the relationships that Troy mentioned and some of our fuel modeling, where our greatest vulnerabilities are, and I think we should do that. So the intent is to place these dollars where they've been requested, which is, and it wouldn't surprise you to know that most of our greatest vulnerability is in our roadways. So we spend a lot of time working with community services to make sure those feeder areas are the ones that see the greatest abatement.
Thank you, Tom. Very informative. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Graham.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Chief Shannon, thank you for the presentation. I had some few questions, but I just want to bring up, you mentioned protect and preserve. Are you talking to members of the commission about some of the things that you've been, like what you just mentioned?
Indeed, indeed. We've had opportunities to present. We've had frequent requests from a budgetary perspective to make sure that our intentions for any future considerations are well-founded and soundly placed in just the things I've talked about, which include fuel management and actual calls for service. So yes, we're very much involved with them.
Have you been presenting to those commission meetings?
Twice, on 2 occasions.
Okay.
Perhaps even 3. I think 2.
Anything else you want to add about that?
I'm sorry?
Anything-
Excuse me, I just get I'm getting a hand from the city attorney on this. Thank you.
City Attorney, welcome to the meeting.
Please, go ahead.
Yes,
Sherry.
I hate to interrupt, but I do believe we're getting a bit too far afield from this agenda item and just want to bring it back to this item in front of the council. Of course, the chief would be able to update the council about those discussions at Protect and Preserve, and we do have minutes from those meetings as well. And you'll hear a presentation from them coming up, I believe, in September.
Thank you. That's an important clarification, and we're required to stay on topic. Any other question?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Shannon. I'll get back to my standard, or my list of questions that I had for you.
Okay.
So this grant, how many acres is this going to treat of the preserve?
I'm going to defer to Troy on this to give us a sense of what past grant comparables might give you a sense of. Troy, do you have that at the tip of your tongue?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Chief. Mayor and Councilman Graham. It's approximately $2,000 to $2,500 per acre. That really depends on the fuel load, the types of fuels that are there, how much work needs to be done, how much material needs to be chipped after it's cut down or removed. So on an average, it's about $2,500 an acre. That actually used to be about half of that price, maybe about $1,500 an acre just a couple of years ago. But along with many other items, the price of those services have gone up quite a bit. But that's probably an average going rate for you to know.
Troy, you said $200 per acre, is that right? Or 25?
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry. You said $2,500 per acre?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
2,500.
So about 200 acres?
In this
Roughly.
case.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So with the preserve being 30,000 acres, I mean, I've heard some people say it's a tinderbox up there. And how do we, are you confident we're going to be able to kind of move through?
Yeah.
Well,
So certainly,
Chief, I think you've already clarified that this is pretty much street frontage and road frontage.
That's the priority now.
It's not necessarily taking out a patch by square acre. There's a lot of lineal feet and miles possibly in that calculation. There's also in the subject just saying that the actual decisions are still subject to the team that understands the situation and problems. So I don't know if we can go too far in depth in terms of, it seems that the boundaries are very important. Fires tend to start from sparks on roadways, and that's covered here.
Okay.
In terms of trying to mitigate with the money that we have.
I was just reading straight from the
Well,
packet. It says that the wildfire potential and severity of fire is high to very high, according to Arizona Wildfire Risk Assessment, managed by the state of Arizona's Department of Forestry. So, I guess I'm just concerned about the safety and condition of the overall preserve. I know this is just a small component of that, and if you wanted to say a little bit about that.
Well, I would say that we manage all fuels based on their priority, and the work of this task force prioritizes our vulnerabilities from greatest to least, and certainly the preserve in its entirety is of concern, but there's a strategy within the preserve as to how to manage those fuels that is really a collaboration with community services. So, of course, there's significant vulnerability when we have a lot of open space, of course.
Well, thank you for talking to us tonight and educating us. The International Space Station flies over all the time, and they posted about flying over Phoenix, and you can see the preserve from space. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it's definitely an asset that we're proud of. So thank you, Chief Shannon.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. This is all about keeping the ecology healthy, and our custodianship and stewardship of that is a big responsibility. It's an important step. With that, I would move to adopt resolution number 12898, authorizing acceptance of the Healthy Forest Initiative grant. Item number 2, a budget transfer of up to $200,000 to be adopted in our budget. And third part, a 30% grant match requirement to be combination of in-kind through hours of various staff members associated with the projects. And item number 4, the fire chief or designee shall conduct all negotiations to execute and submit all documents and other necessary and desirable instruments in connection with this Healthy Forest Initiative grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Thank you. Please record your vote. We are unanimous. Thank you very much. At this point, we will move on to the next scheduled regular agenda item. Item number 16, the George Hotel Conditional Use Permit number 16, UP-2007, number 2. Our presenter is Katie Postler, Senior Planner, and the applicant is also standing by with their presentation. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Katie Postler, and I'm here to present Case 16 UP 2007 number 2, the George Hotel. The site is a half a mile north of the North Pima Road and East Indian Bend intersection. To the north, west, and south are attached single-family homes, and to the east is the Great Wolf Lodge, water park, and hotel. Here's a context aerial. The site has been operating as a hotel since the 60s and 70s, and the general plan designates this area as tourism. The zoning on the site is R5 PCD, which stands for Multifamily Planned Community District. And just for context later, if you see where the word site is, that's the building that's going to be demolished. The request in front of you today is to adopt resolution number 12877 for an amendment to an existing conditional use permit, 16 UP 2007, for site plan amendments for a travel accommodation to allow for a new 3-story hotel building, 1-story gym and cafe, site improvements, and renovations and expansions to existing hotel buildings. And for context, the original use permit was in 2007, and that was for 100 bedrooms, and this one before you today is for 84. Here's a proposed site plan to go over the new buildings. In red is the new 50-room hotel building that steps from 2 to 3 stories. The 2 stories is closest to the residential on the west, and then it steps to 3 as you get closer to Pima. The gym and cafe is 1 story, that's new. And then the existing lobby will have some smaller expansions. And then the building below that is the existing 34-room hotel building, and that will remain. Directly north are some existing condominiums, and then to the west, as I mentioned before, are some attached single-family homes. And access to the site remains the same, which is from Pima through Inner Circle Drive. Here's the proposed landscape plan. Because the site has been here for a while, there's an existing perimeter screen wall and some mature trees and existing vegetation all around the site. And then additionally, the applicant will provide new trees along the north, west, and south boundary of the new hotel building. At Planning Commission, there were some landscape stipulations. So along Pima, there's been some additional trees added, as well as a species was switched out for one that has less breakage. Here are the building elevations for reference. So you can see at the top, that's what faces the residential to the west. So it's 2 stories and then steps to 3. And then the image below that is what faces Pima Road at 3 stories. The south elevation is on top, so that's what would face internal to the hotel site. And then the north elevation is what would face the existing condominiums. The max height in this district is 36 feet, and they're proposing to be at 35 exclusive of mechanical equipment. So this is a conditional use permit request. It's an amendment to the existing one, and there's criteria for a CUP. So the first is damage or nuisance arising from noise, smoke, odor, dust, vibration, or illumination. So the hotel enforces quiet hours, has strong existing perimeter vegetation and screen walls, and all the new lighting proposed will be full cutoff and directed downward per code. So no impacts are anticipated there. The second is that the impact on surrounding areas from unusual volume or traffic. So this site is currently operating as a hotel and remains to be accessed from Pima Road, which is a minor arterial and is set to handle this traffic. The last is that the characteristics of the proposed conditional use are reasonably compatible with the uses in the surrounding area. So as mentioned, we have residential to the north, west, and south, and then another tourism use to the east of Great Wolf Lodge. Some key items for this case before you are the use permit criteria, just some history that the past use permit was 100 rooms and this one's 84. The building does step from 2 to 3 stories away from the residential. There's existing perimeter landscaping. We have received public comment on this case. Approval will allow for the new hotel building, renovations, and improvements on the site. And then Planning Commission heard this case on July 12th and voted to approve it with a vote of 4-2. That concludes staff presentation, but the applicant is here to present their project as well.
Thank you. Please come forward. Then we will have public comment and further clarification. Please state your name and step up to the mic, and we will.
Hello, my name is John McColgan. I'm with Forge Architecture. I'm here to present the George Hotel. What we are here to do is to amend the existing use permit.
Come up to the mic.
What we're here to do is to amend the existing use permit. To do this, we are proposing to decrease the hotel room count from 100 to 84. We are proposing to increase the existing landscaping. We wish to retain the existing mature landscaping. We wish to densify and supplement that landscaping, and we wish to increase the buffer for the surrounding neighbors. This is an existing hotel. We wish to remain a hotel. This will be a commercial hotel. When we started this project with our owners group, there were difficult things associated with this project, and we wanted to make it better. We are doing this in a few ways. One way is we're proposing to move from a value-oriented hotel and move it to an upscale boutique hotel. To do this, our ownership group is investing in Scottsdale. With its 84 rooms, we are proposing to really maximize health and wellness and market towards that clientele. To the north are 40 condominiums that are not a part of this work. Their parking lot is a part of this ownership group. They have 59 parking spaces, which previously were not deeded or designated or a benefit of these condominiums, and we are proposing that they become a part of that. Those parking spaces are these covered parking spaces. These parking spaces that are directly adjacent, and there are 4 additional spaces which will be designated and will be have signage stating that they are specifically for this condominium group. This property needs work to realize its potential. When our ownership group purchased this hotel, they realized this and they took that on. Part of this is there is an existing park, and we are proposing to retain that use and have it as a benefit for the neighbors. It is in disrepair currently. There are also issues with the sidewalks, paving, some landscape maintenance items, and issues with the streetlights on Inner Circle Drive, and also over on the corner nearest the condominiums. Part of the commitment of this ownership group is to remedy those items. So repair the irrigation systems, repair the streets, maintain them, repair the broken sidewalks and curbs, and provide landscaping maintenance, remove the stumps by grinding them down, and providing new landscaping. Let's see, odor. There is an existing kitchen here, which we are keeping in place. It is closest to Pima Road and away from the residential neighborhood. We're proposing to keep it in that location. Garbage. There will be garbage, which is also located along Pima Road, and it will be screened. Noise. There are quiet hours for the hotel that are proposed. Those will be enforced by hotel security on the property. Daytime will also be enforced. If there's unruly behavior or intoxicated people on the property, the hotel security can address those items. There are also proposed to be security around at night. So there will be someone in a golf cart or in a automobile that circulates around the property, around Inner Circle Drive, but through the property to make sure that those items are addressed in case there is someone, a guest out in the parking lot having an issue that needs to be addressed. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. At this point, then we will look for public comment, if we will.
May I,
And then,
may I introduce our owner? He also has.
excuse me, continuing. I missed that, sorry. Continuing, this is the owner, I believe.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Andre Golnazarian. I'm the managing member of the entity looking to complete this George Hotel project in Scottsdale. Before I answer any questions, Mayor Ortega, I know you wanted an agreement with the condo association. I don't know if you want me to pass this along to you, but you were asking about it. We do have an agreement in place. It goes on in perpetuity where I completely manage the exterior of the property. And then, as you can see, we're also, and then the condominium complex has access to our amenities currently as it is, and then we will continue going that. We are, at our own expense, adding an extra pool over there in case, you know, if it gets if it's too many people or too crowded in the main pool area, all the neighbors would have access to the pool in the northwest corner up there. And as far as more, just to do more in the community, we're completely redoing Inner Circle Drive. We're going to be redoing the pavement, all at our own expense, the curbing, adding lighting, as John mentioned, security in and around the property at all times. And yeah, that's, you know, essentially what we're planning on doing. Again, all of it at our own expense, none to the homeowners or the condo or anything.
Okay, so for clarification, the Inner Circle properties have separate ownership.
Yes, sir.
And this is approximately a 53-year-old property. So those property holders also had some vested rights, let's say, with the clubhouse and the former Pima Inn. Those run with the land, and therefore you are, as the new owner, 2 years, assuming all those obligations for the crossover. And I heard you say that there were also some gives that you were going to go off property and take care of the street lighting for your compatible nearest, that the Inner Circle group.
Yes, sir.
So what I had requested was just a verification of that, which are all deeded rights or so forth. The other clarification is that the original pool, which is the large one near the Pima Inn or a clubhouse, they have now added another smaller pool. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's for the convenience and use of that group if they didn't want to go into the larger thing.
Yes, sir.
So they seem to be sort of club members of this group. That's the
Essentially.
clarification that I asked for, and
Yes.
you have all the supporting material for that. With that, I have two. Did you want to continue with your presentation, or?
No, sir. I was going to say I'm a member of the household community to the homes that are right along the hotel, just west of the hotel. We purchased 3 of those, so I mean I'm basically a member of that community too, as far as having a residence goes. So it's all to our advantage as well as to the neighbors as well.
Okay, so what I also noticed is that this property is vested and has been used as a hotel and rental, and they had the lucky timing of getting the approval just before the Great Recession. So in 2007, they got that, and it's been dead in the water since. And you are the new owner as of when, approximately?
March of 2021.
Well, thank you very much for taking this on.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks.
At this point, I would just, I think it's useful to go to public comment, if I may, and then we'll come back to perhaps some other questions from council. So if you could please be seated. I show 2 requests to speak. James McDearman and Andy Beresford. If you could please come forward. Thank you, sirs. State your place of residence, and certainly you have 3 minutes, so appreciate you coming by. James McDearman.
Yes, I go by Jim McDearman. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am a resident of the Sands Scottsdale patio home community, which is just adjacent and to the west of this property. I think it's fair to say that for the last several years, this hotel has been pretty much a nuisance to the community that I live in. We've had numerous incidences to include people climbing over the wall from the property into our community on a regular basis, some on a daily basis. They actually set up a chair on one side of the wall and then a stool on the other side so that they could literally make the trip that much easier. And again, like I said, we have video cameras of this happening on a daily basis, people climbing over the wall and walking down the street to go wherever they go. There's been numerous police incidences. One about a year ago in which there was a domestic dispute at the hotel. Somebody with a gun climbed over the fence and was climbing through the yards of the people in my community. The police came and arrested them, but not without completely freaking out several of the people who live in the community. We had a situation where an intoxicated person climbed over the wall and passed out in one of my neighbor's yards. And of course the police was called for that as well, excuse me. We ultimately the community wound up putting a 4-foot metal fence on top of the wall to prevent people from climbing over the fence into our property. So that's kind of a little background. Now from a current perspective situation, current situational awareness kind of thing, due to these problems, we were excited to find out that there's going to be a renovation of the property. Okay, so that's kind of the good news. We did, however, participate in the Planning Commission, or at least I did and my wife did. We're involved in the Planning Commission's meeting a couple of months ago. And the renovation only includes the hotel property itself. The condominiums that are to the north and then the houses along Inner Circle are not really a part of this project. There's no planned physical separation between the condominium building and the hotel building, which the condominium building is what is directly adjacent to our property.
Stay close to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
You're wandering.
Yeah, I do that. So what we were hoping to see is some kind of a fence or a barrier between the condominium building and the hotel building to prevent people from, it would make it more difficult for them to climb over the wall into our property. We also understand that the hotel has agreed to, as was mentioned, to update the streets and the lights and the sidewalks in the area there off of Inner Circle, which we think is great. But when we were involved in the Planning Commission meeting, we got the sense that this was a one-time deal. Now, I think you've clarified that tonight. The plan is to do some long-term maintenance and keep that up. That's an area that's kind of sad, unfortunately, and it really does need to be, not just spruced up, but maintained over the long haul. So I think what we really like to see is a more comprehensive plan that brings all these properties together and creates an environment that is less segmented than it's going to be. I understand there's property ownership issues associated with that.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Moving on to the next speaker, Andy Beresford, please. Okay. Well, as you may be aware, I didn't realize you gave us your time. Did you want to add on a little more? I just want you to be aware that, this is a conditional use permit, and the next step will have to go through Development Review Board. Now, you may have some ideas on property which may or may not work in the whole scheme of things. But it's my understanding that, of course, the public pools or the pool of the hotel must be fenced, for instance. So we will see how it evolves at the next step, and you'd certainly be welcome to participate at that point. I have accordingly, I will close public comment. Next, we'll go to Councilmember Durham and then Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. I watched the Planning Commission hearing this afternoon, and there was a 4-2 vote in favor of this project. And I just wanted to hear from either Katie or the applicant on how you would summarize the opposition. I think part of it was what Mr. McDermott just stated, that they wanted greater integration of the project. I'm not sure that's really possible at this stage. or appropriate under a CUP. And I think also as Mr. Gonzalez was worried about the parking situation, so if either or both of you want to address those and sort of express what your views were on the opposition at the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Councilmember Durham. And per our rules, the applicant will respond, first. So you have, I believe, 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. So let me start by saying I agree with Jim. I believe he said there are issues that need to be taken care of, and that's why I'm trying to kind of associate all the properties together and be like an association manager without any expense to the homeowners. But as far as some of the things, well, I simply don't own those condominiums or those houses on the southwest corner. There's only a limitation to how much we can possibly do outside of our particular property. Let me also add that, they're worried about, there's less than ideal people jumping over their wall and things like that. I mean, we're investing upwards about $20 million into the property if you include the land purchase. So it's going to be a brand new boutique hotel with security and all that stuff. So it hasn't been touched in 50 years. So the people have just gotten used to that. But I totally intend on changing that here in the next 12 to 15 months. If that helps answer your question.
Right, that helps. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, next we will go to Councilwoman Whitehead, then Councilwoman Janik.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Katie, and the applicants for being here and the Sands. I'm really familiar with the Sands, but I have to say, and I pride myself in knowing all the neighborhoods, so I biked on down, and I did not know that neighborhood, the Inner Circle neighborhood, existed. So that was news to me. And this is such a cool nook. And that park is a disaster. There's so much potential in this 50-plus year property. And so I'm grateful that you and your partners decided to invest money in it because, again, you think in the 1960s and 70s, all that tourism stuff across the street where, frankly, we don't get taxes, wasn't even there. So I think more than ever, Scottsdale does need a high-end boutique hotel in this spot. So I'm very, very supportive of that. But another trend that I've really liked that I've been seeing over the years is that hotels are no longer for guests alone. They're really part of the community. And I won't name hotels, but there are a lot of hotels that allow neighbors, like townhome residents that live across the street, to use their facilities, and especially during the downtime. I just think that is just such a neat thing because then we're making, the hotels are truly not only funding our taxes, but they're also community assets. So I love the idea that you're putting in that extra pool. I think that's really cool. I like the 24-hour security. That was the most bizarre thing. I guess if you have a 50-year-old property that isn't really managed for 50 years or for the last 30, I guess weird things happen, and you guys have been the victims. And wow. So I wish we had a guy in a golf cart managing all of our short-term rentals, but we don't. But I'm really glad we're going to have that at your hotel. The landscaping on the east side is beautiful and lush, and so I liked that you specifically mentioned you're keeping all of that. And yeah, the rest of it, please invest. And so, yeah, this was a real learning experience for me because I didn't know they were back there. So lots of potential. I love our historic older areas, and we love when there's investment. And I think you'll be good neighbors, and I think we're here if not. So thank you. You have my support.
Thank you, Councilwoman Janik, and then Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Do you have experience with this type of redevelopment or adaptive reuse with your company?
Yes, to answer your question, yeah, my whole background, professional background is multifamily, redevelopment, rehab. It hasn't been to I've never built a brand new 50 units, but, you know, we remodeled more than 50 before, like, you know, A to Z with all the plumbing and everything, just not this is the first time the foundation ground up. But yeah, this is, my professional background is essentially this, but in the multifamily facet.
Great, thank you. I'm very supportive of your project.
Thank you.
I think you've got a lot of great ideas. I like the fact that you're renovating, you're not tearing everything down. You've worked with the community, you will continue to work with the community. So I'm very, very supportive of this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Graham and then Councilwoman Caputi.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, John and Andre, for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little more about resident feedback and the kind of things you heard from the neighbors?
You know, what Jim said over there was essentially some of the issues that we heard about. We had an open house. We had around like 40, 50 neighbors around.
Yeah, I saw that the open house seemed pretty well attended.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we haven't heard any backlash to anyone against it. They're all for it. I think the issue is the uniqueness of the community.
Can I just cut? You said that you haven't heard anything bad from the residents?
No, not yet. It's just issues like that we agree and we're trying to fix too.
Yeah.
I think it's more of any questions we got is the uniqueness of the property, whereas the condos like kind of falls in the middle and then the street goes around and the parking goes around. But like I said, we already have an agreement in place to manage the exterior and do all that and share the amenities and so on and so forth. So that's essentially some of the issues were, but nothing of you know, anyone saying that we shouldn't be doing this.
Can you talk a little more about the road maintenance? Because I went back and I was able to see the Planning Commission. There was maybe some ambiguity about that, and you talked about that a little bit, or John did, but
yeah.
How is in perpetuity, how is the road maintenance control, ownership, and who's responsible?
Yeah, and it's going to be us. Technically, again, it's such an unorthodox property because whatever happened 30, 40 years ago when they sold it off completely, I don't think they parceled it out right because the road is a private road. But
who owns the road? Is it that community? Is it the surrounding?
Yeah, so I believe it falls under our jurisdiction. The road falls under our jurisdiction. So we're gonna be, you know, repaving the whole thing. I mean, the house, all the neighbors use it, but we're gonna be repaving the whole street and redoing the curbing and the landscaping over there and adding the lights and all that. And we're gonna be managing it. Yeah, like I said, the road apparently. I didn't know there was private roads up until this project came
Oh,
around.
yeah, there's a few private roads around here.
Yeah. So this is all new to me. But yeah, it falls on our property, and I have no issues with, you know, taking care of it in perpetuity.
I saw some of the resident feedback in there was just the roads are in disrepair.
Yeah. It was basically, there was no problems with the project itself. It was just the areas around it. People were, you know, I think they've been trying to get this figured out for decades. Mm-hmm. And I just said I'll do it.
Yeah. So you said you'll do it, but like, is that written somewhere?
Well, when I said I'd do it, I didn't even know it falls on my technically the road's mine. I thought it was just like a city road. So, I mean, it's mine and my company, so we have to upkeep it.
City manager can't send his staff out there.
You know, Councilman, I think what we're probably getting to is there may be a private agreement that we're not party to, and we are not. So that means that the ownership of those remaining lots or properties would have some sort of agreement with this development. It's different than if we had a development agreement for frontage improvements, you know, to our street or public street. The other thing is it got to be complicated because I asked for the file knowing a bit that they had crossover trespass rights, so to speak, from those properties over. Now, we can't codify that. That's already in their deed, and they've had experience with that.
I mean, but that was brought up in the presentation, so I'm allowed to ask about that.
Of course, I'm just trying to say, but we can't necessarily handle or referee.
I guess I just wanted to kind of get on the record, just get an understanding of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. At the end of the day, the road falls onto our responsibility, and
Okay.
we totally intend to update it as much as possible.
Okay, well, very good.
Yeah.
Did you have any feedback or conversations with McCormick Ranch Homeowners Association?
I have no one's reached out to me from there.
Okay.
McCormick Ranch?
Well, it's not in McCormick Ranch, but it abuts at McCormick Ranch. You knew that.
Oh, no one's reached out to me in that facet, no.
Okay, I would thought that would have been a conversation that might have happened along the way.
No.
There was citizen feedback about some of the trees are dead or dying. Any truth to that, or what's your response to that?
That is correct. There are trees that are dying and water parched that require replacement, or an arborist's opinion to determine if they need to be replaced. But that is true, especially in that park and around Inner Circle Drive.
Are there like specific plans? Do you have like to replace them, or is it just sort of like you hope to get it done?
Thank you for the question. No, there are specific plans to replace the dead Lepo pines with native Palo Verde or mesquite or other trees that came up in the building commission meeting, that those are prone to breakage. And so they had some other selections. So they would be replaced with a tree of that nature. The stumps would be ground out. There are existing large Lepo pine stumps, and those would be ground out and replaced with a new tree.
Do you know about how many trees you're talking about? Since you've looked, I know you looked at it pretty closely.
About 17. About 17.
Yeah, so you took an inventory, didn't you?
There has been a landscaping plan prepared, yes.
I guess my concern or doubt about the project a little bit is cohesion with the surrounding community. It was kind of, separated or divided. The whole area was kind of divided up long ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, way before my time. Yeah.
Is there any efforts or consideration to somehow, the project's changed hands multiple times. It's kind of been an eyesore. I know you want to invest in it, but your impact can only go so far, and I'm sure your product will look great, but was there any sort of effort to try to put the whole thing together? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I've met with the HOA president of the condos, and we've tried to discuss potentially our company potentially buying that out as a whole, but it's just not feasible. There's way too many owners, and you would have to get 80% of them to agree to sell, and then force sell the other one, and this has been hard enough.
So it sounds like you tried then, right?
We've had discussions. Yeah, I offered. I've spoken to them if you're willing to sell. Like I said, we were able to purchase the 3 houses along that are right next to the hotel. We've reached out to everyone if they're interested. We'd like to talk, but you can't do it much further than that.
I guess the next best thing is, what did you sort of take to cohere to the surrounding, as far as architectural material and design? Is there going to be sort of a flow or synchronicity?
At this point, we're just dealing with the CUP issue. That is the reduction from 100 units down the other.
Mr. Mayor,
you're getting
these are all
further into the off-property questions of
Mr. Mayor, these are all in the packet. They're all in the packet.
Sir, I'm trying to clarify for you that we're speculating and you're asking whether architectural standards for all these other separate properties are relevant. They really aren't for what we're looking at.
These are all in the packet.
They don't own all those properties, and he's just stated that. So it's an interesting area to explore, but it's not really where we're at.
It's also, these are questions that residents want answers to, Mr. Mayor.
No, there's fragmentations. There's many owners or trusts or other involvement that they're not part of the subject of
the
this.
residents and the neighbors want to hear these answers.
Sir, that's not what we are agendized for. We're not agendized to look at architectural standards or other kind of cohesive reorganization, buyouts, or anything else for these multiple other properties that they may be satisfied with where they're living.
Those exact topics were used to sell in the packet to sell the CUP authorization, but they can't be asked about. The residents can't hear
Those
the
may
answers.
be
Is that
a
what you're saying?
follow-up, and I already said we have architectural guidelines and other questions as far as whether that context would be relevant. That's the DR board discussion. And it's a good question, but it's not really
But you don't want
about
the residents to hear the
conditional-
answers tonight.
The conditional use permit is the subject of tonight. That's why I'm trying to say whether or not we have the same matching mailboxes or the same tile selection or paint palette on these separate other properties is not relevant.
Mr. Mayor, it's simple. They used those topics to sell the case, so we're allowed to ask about them. So do you want residents to hear about it, yes or no?
Sir, I told you it's through the architectural DR board discussion when those questions can be raised. It would be great if people said, you know what, I like the colors they're using on the hotel, and I think we should unify and go with a palette that works. That's a separate discussion by maybe 20 or 18 other homeowners. That's a good discussion, but it's not part of what we're talking about here.
Well,
and it's not a deal breaker for the CUP, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Well, I suppose I'll continue with my questions, but your point is received.
Good.
And I won't ask those questions for residents to hear them tonight. But I think the questions I had for Andre and John, I had just one question for Katie, if I may ask you. So thank you very much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll talk after.
Okay, we'll have, right afterwards, Councilwoman Caputi, just so I don't miss line, and Vice Mayor
Okay.
Littlefield. So go, proceed, Councilman Graham.
So my last question here is, Katie, there was some resident feedback in the packet that the notice wasn't mailed to nearby residents or notification standards weren't met. I just wanted to ask you sort of on the record, is that accurate?
Mayor, Councilmember Graham, so notice was sent out, the preliminary postcard, and then the site was posted with the hearing sign, and then we also do additional signage once the hearing date is scheduled. So the applicant did provide the required notice for this case.
I guess maybe some of the consternation might have been the fact that you're so close with that, just the way sort of the awkwardness of the design, but it's on Pima Road and you have a sign, but you got to go a very long distance, even if you live right next door, to see the signage. Is that kind of how that worked?
I can say that the site was definitely posted with the hearing sign and that the applicant did comply with their notice and the open house, and the city provides additional notice.
Okay, so you're not aware of any standards, unmet standards?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Katie.
Sure thing.
You done? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman Caputi, then Vice Mayor Littlefield.
Well, I just want to thank the ownership group for investing in our city. We're really grateful. It's hard for me to find things to not like about this project. I'm just going to highlight a couple that haven't been mentioned yet. You're greatly upscaling and improving an area that's gone into quite a bit of disarray, so I can't imagine that the neighbors wouldn't be incredibly happy to have a much nicer facility in their neighborhood. We're getting far better architecture and way better landscaping, which is going to improve, again, the area. You're reusing as opposed to bleeding the development, which is fantastic in terms of sustainability, and I know in the packet we read a lot about how much of you're really concentrating on making it a sustainable development in every possible way in terms of materials and water, and this whole council is very appreciative of that. You also spent a lot of time talking about the location, being able to interface with different types of transportation. Your goal is to make this a park once facility, which again, we're always trying to encourage up here on this council, so thank you so much for doing that. We're getting a less dense development than what was originally proposed, which I can't say enough good things about. And then finally, just the concentration on health and wellness. Scottsdale has recently become a blue zone city, And this seems to be absolutely perfect in terms of what we're trying to do, and positioning ourselves as the place to come for not just great events, but health and wellness. One other tiny comment, there's been some talk about folks wanting the area to be less segmented, and yet I also heard a comment about wanting a wall. So to me, that seems a little contradictory. I actually think you're doing a wonderful job of making that entire area more cohesive and bringing it all up. So I know there's another comment, but on that note, I would like to say that I find the conditional use permit criteria have been met for 16 UP 2007 number 2, and I would like to adopt resolution 12877 approving an amendment to an existing conditional use permit for site plan amendments for a travel accommodation to allow for a new 3-story hotel building, 1-story gym cafe, site improvements and renovations and expansions to existing hotel building on a 4.74 acre site with multiple family residential planned community district R5 PCD zoning.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Next up is Vice Mayor Littlefield and then Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I support this project. I think it's something that's badly needed and has been for a long time. Thank you. I am a little concerned about the neighbors' concerns. From what I've heard, there were 40 or 50 people that showed up at your open house that had issues or had concerns, had questions. And I would ask that you work with them and see that you can come to some sort of mutually acceptable solutions to the problems of the wall and the landscaping. I know you're already working on that, and the roads. So that's basically all I wanted to know. Work with the neighbors on the security of the area. I don't like the idea of people climbing the fences into their yards and that kind of thing. So see what can be done on stuff like that. But I do like this project. I think you've done a great job, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehead.
I just wanted to answer Councilman Graham's question since I was on site. So there's a very large sign. It's a small little area, and there's a huge sign that says that there's this change. And the Pima Road is not very busy. I mean, I'm sure, I'm on it a lot, often on my bike, but there's many turns. So if you were driving down the road speeding, you shouldn't be, but if you passed it, you could easily turn left into one of the many different turnoffs, whether it's the Wolf Lodge or whatever, and come right back. So it's a pretty small area, and it's a pretty big sign. So I would say that, I'm not in everybody's mailboxes, but I know that I throw out a lot of mail, so probably people threw out the notices, but the sign's pretty darn visible, and I'm sure it's just to spec what our staff requires. So I just wanted to answer that question.
Mayor.
Okay, so now
Mayor.
we haven't, excuse me, sir. Did you plug in? I just didn't see that.
Sorry.
Well, I was looking for a motion to vote, and you spoke. So yes, I can see that.
Council members Whitehead just mentioned me, so I was just going to respond very politely, very briefly. But yeah, I did a site visit, and I saw the signage. I was just concerned about the fact that people in the abutting adjacent area that aren't on that. It's not like it's right next door. You got to go all the way around. But I'm sure the neighbors in that area frequent and travel those roads. So it was just sort of the juxtaposition of kind of the houses, but how you had to go so far on the roads. But thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, thank you. And kind of in conclusion, this property's come a long way. When it was first built, the golf course was across Pima Road. And actually, the golf course had to watch both ways before they crossed, and this was the 19th hole, all right? Weddings were held there and other things. It was a great place for family citywide to enjoy the summer pools and so forth. And that was then. This is now. It's come a long way. Please record your vote. Unanimous. Thank you. Good luck with your project, sir. Next, we will move on to the second agendized item, which is the opportunity for public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for Scottsdale residents to bring up a non-agendized item? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Next item is, according to our charter, every citizen can bring forth a petition to council for consideration. That would have been recorded with the court clerk. Seeing none, therefore, item number 17 is not applicable. There's also mayor and council items, and I had seen none on a notice for that. Is that correct? Oh, yes, I know, but I meant I didn't see any mayor and council items, item number 18. Therefore, next we will go to, next we will go to boards and commissions and task force nominations. We are at the stage for nominating, and at this point, I will turn the chair over to Vice Mayor Littlefield as we begin the nomination process.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, the City Council will be nominating Scottsdale residents interested in serving on citizen advisory boards, commissions, and committees. The Scottsdale City Council is responsible for establishing city policies and enacting laws in support of those policies. The council relies on volunteer, citizen-based boards and commissions to research issues and make recommendations in support of the council's missions and goals. The information and recommendations provided by council-appointed advisory boards is a valuable tool in helping council members in their deliberations. Appointments for these positions will be made at a special city council meeting on Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. So let's get started. Our first board is the Development Review Board. There is one opening. The purpose of the Development Review Board is to review and approve architectural design and layout of proposed development plans. There are special qualifications. As outlined in the city code, the membership shall consist of a city council member, a planning commission member, and 5 public members, 3 of whom shall be architects, environmental scientists, landscape architects, or persons otherwise qualified by design background, training, or experience, and 2 of whom shall be land developers, builders, or contractors. Shakir Guskari's term expires in August and is ineligible for reappointment. There is 1 vacancy and 10 applicants. The applicants are Julie Berry, Francisco Castel, Michael Corso, John Griffin, Thomas Kuby, David Mason, Christopher Schroeder, Brian Silverstein, Roger Strasberg, and Scott Tiedman. I will now entertain nominations from the Development Review Board, for the Development Review Board. Each council member can nominate 1 applicant. We will begin with Councilwoman Janik.
David Mason.
Julie Berry.
Berry? Councilman Graham?
Sorry, Vice Mayor. Mr. Kuby?
Christopher Schrader.
No additional?
David Mason?
I'm sorry, Dave Mason? Okay. Thomas Kuby? Okay, we have Julie Berry, Thomas Kuby, David Mason, Christopher Schroeder, Christopher Schroeder.
That's it.
That's it. 2, 4,
So-
5, 6.
So there's really one
We're
position.
missing
there's 2.
one vote.
No.
Oh. Okay,
1 opening.
okay, we're good.
There's two people.
Not for DRB.
No, but there's 2.
There was 1 no additional. Okay. We're good. Our next board is the Judicial Appointments Advisory Board. Is that not right?
Vice Mayor, that is correct. We did not have any applications for that board.
Yes. The Judicial Appointments Advisory Board has 1 opening. However, no applications have been received at this time. As such, we will move on to the next board, the Library Board, and it has 2 openings. The Library Board advises the City Council on general policy relating to the program, services, and future development of the Scottsdale Public Libraries. Frida Hartman's term expires in August. She is eligible for reappointment and has submitted an application for consideration. Sheila Reinman's term expires in August and is ineligible for reappointment. So there are 2 vacancies. There are 32 applicants. And the applicants are Don Abel, Mohammed Babur, Sue Bolduk, Nitin Chobra, Susanna Gutierrez Colby, Carrie Cox, Lula Day, Jan Dubakis, Jennifer Fablanco, Frida Hartman, Paige Harvey, Bonnie Capon, Kuspo Khalil, Marcy Kostua, Kathy Lane, Linda Lebang, Adam Lyons, Don McCormick, Sean McCracken, Vernon Noranha, Franny Oberman, Rosalind O'Connell, Dana Ranick, Martha Rockwell, Amanda Shelter Whitmer, Janice Shimokubo, Dennis Seidlow, Alice Stambaugh, Grace Stonebrace, Leslie Toten, John Wanat, and Christine Wilson. And I apologize if I mispronounced anyone's name. But I will now entertain nominations for the Library Board. Each council member can nominate 2 applicants. We'll begin with Councilwoman Caputi. And as we go around, give a pause for a moment before the next one speaks so that we have time to mark on the board. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I'll nominate Frida Hartman and Leslie Totten.
Ready, Rommel? I suppose I will nominate Miss Wilson and Miss Dubauskas.
I will add John Wanat, not sure how to pronounce that, W-A-N-A-T, and no additional.
This is an amazing list, and I know so many people on this list, and I just want to thank everyone. I'd love to have Ms. Hartman back on the Library Commission, so she's got my nomination, and I nominate Leslie Totten. Thank you.
I second Councilmember Whitehead's comment. Sorry, Mayor.
Did I miss something, or what?
Oh, I was just seconding
excuse
Councilmember
me.
Whitehead's. So,
Okay.
But I was out of order.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have, I nominate Leslie Totten and Frida Hartman.
I nominate Jan Dubakis and Frida Hartman.
No additional.
So, Vice Mayor, the individuals nominated are Jan Dubakis, Frida Hartman, and then Leslie Toten, John Wanat, and Christine Wilson.
Yes. Thank you. That's longer than the board has. Okay. The next commission is Parks and Recreation. There are 2 openings. The Parks and Recreation Commission advises the City Council on the acquisitions of land and facilities for use as parks and recreational centers, and on the operation, use, care, and maintenance of these parks and recreational centers. Kurt Jones's term expires in August, and he is ineligible for reappointment. Susan McCary's term expires in August. She is eligible for reappointment and has submitted an application for consideration. There are 2 vacancies and 10 applicants. The applicants are Jamie Alford, Amy Arnold, Robert Blackwell, Riley Casey, Jane Legacy, Susan McCary, Kim Olerhead, Dennis Schofner, Michael Vreeland, and Diane Wilson. We can begin with, who's next? Barry?
Barry's next.
Councilman Graham.
I will add Miss Alford. Thank you. I know there's two, but thank you.
I would nominate Susan McGarry and Michael Vreeland.
Susan McGarry and Robert Blackwell.
Mayor?
Ready? Robert Blackwell and Susan McCary.
I will nominate Susan McGarry and Dennis Schofner.
No additional.
Robert Blackwell, Susan McGarry.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So I just noted individuals only need one nomination to advance. So the individuals that are advancing, Jamie Alford, Robert Blackwell, Susan McGarry, Dennis Soffner, and Michael Vreeland.
However, I didn't, so I see you just counted them once, like Blackwell was named.
Yes, sir. They advanced just with one
nobody
nomination.
else was named twice, is that correct?
Susan McGarry had 5 votes.
I thought Susan was named twice already.
She had 5.
I'm sorry, not McGarry.
Susan McGarry.
He's saying that.
I'm just trying to clarify, if you record the vote, then that would.
We do have it noted, Mayor, but for the nominations, they actually only need one nomination
Only
to
one.
advance.
Oh.
At the appointments meeting is where we'll note each of your individual votes for the successful applicants.
I see, thank you.
Okay. Those are the people that are going to go forward. Our next commission is our Transportation Commission. There's one opening. The Transportation Commission advises the City Council on matters relating to the safe and efficient movement of vehicles, transit, pedestrians, and bicycles. The Commission provides a public forum to hear citizen complaints and requests regarding transportation matters. Pamela Lacovo's term expires in August, and she is ineligible for reappointment. There is one vacancy and 4 applicants. The applicants are Denise Doctor, Lee Kofthel, Robert Marmon, and Malin Pikowitz. And I'm sorry if I've mispronounced any of those names. We can begin with Ben?
Councilman.
Kim?
Oh, Denise Doctor.
Lee Kofdell.
No additional, Lee Hoftel.
Robert Marmon?
No additional.
Lee Kofdell, no additional.
None additional.
Okay. We have 3 nominees to move forward into the appointment process. Thank you very much. This concludes our nomination process for this evening. Individuals nominated will be contacted by the city staff and with additional information. And I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all who have applied to serve on a citizen advisory board or commission. Even if you were not nominated, your application will remain on file for 1 year for consideration at a future date if there are additional vacancies. So thank you all very much. Mayor, I turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you very much. With that, we have completed all agenda items. I'm open for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Moved and seconded by me. Please record your vote. Thank you. We are adjourned. See you in September.